an interesting match to say the least. I mean, we were talking about 2019 as being the period where both of these players were very active. Demi
Mhm.
did take a little bit of a break in the middle of 2020, but
Mhm.
for the most part has continued to remain very, very active. Azure has taken a little bit of an extended break,
Mhm.
but in the past couple of months or so, he has been back and he has been grinding insanely hard. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to try to compare their forms right now.
Oh yeah.
And of course, that's what we're going to be doing here over on Inside and Out to the. No, there's only inside and out. There's no left or right. In the top right hand corner of the map, starting all the way in the top right hand corner, we of course have our red Zerg player coming down from the land of India. He is the Shark himself, patrolling the Zerg Muta Triangle, representing Alpha X. He is Demi.
And spawning in the bottom left-hand corner of Inside and Out, we have the Australian Terran player himself. Representing himself, it is Azure.
Hi.
Oh boy, again, as you were saying, there's a little bit of history between these two players. They have faced off many times in the past, as they are representing the same region, Oceania and Southeast Asia. Now here they face off again in current era. As you were saying, both players are currently very active, but Demi has been a little bit more consistent this year. Azure only recently rising up, but I should put a little bit of emphasis on that rising up portion, because he's been getting a lot of really impressive results recently.
He absolutely has, and not just in AoE, in StarCraft as well. No, he doesn't really play AoE. It's hard to play AoE.
Yeah, he did go play AoE as well. A lot of the Australian players did switch over, but Azure, he is one of the many who switched back. Not a hut. Hudden-igus, shaking my head.
SMH.
SM.
Something about the Aussie Terran players, man.
I know, right? I know. But yeah, Azure, he's been taking down players like Control, like Aztecs. Didn't quite take down Nicaract, but was able to take down a couple of other players as well. He took down Beastork a couple of weeks ago. No, he got his revenge.
Yeah. Finally hunted the Stork.
He hunted down the Stork with the very same harpoon that he hunted down that shark those many years ago. And now here we are again. Oof. And what exactly is Azure going to bring to the table? Because he's, again, one of those players that, kind of like Gumiho, he can kind of mix things up in many ways. He can play bio, he can also play mech.
Yeah, that's probably the thing I remember best about Azure is in every matchup, he is just incredibly versatile. He can play bio, he can play mech, as you said, and he can even just switch strategies and how he decides to play bio and mech as well. Sometimes he's super active everywhere on the map. He'll have 3 drops going on at once. Other times he'll just turtle up hard and then eventually go for one big counterattack.
Exactly. We'll see what he decides to go for here, as he opens up with a 3cc before Starport. Very standard, very economic. I would say a little bit out of the meta. Like, we've been seeing a lot of, 2-on-1s, a lot of 3-racks openers, a lot of, like, BC openers, or even 2-port BC, a lot more aggressive styles. Azure, gonna slow things down a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to mention. Nowadays, the TVZ meta is a little bit more focused on dealing some kind of damage early on, rather than getting an economic lead, or rather than trying to, get a strong economy early on. But we'll see if this works out for Azure. Again, he is a man of many tricks.
Yeah, and he also could be right now just testing the capabilities of Demi, because I don't know how often they've played against each other, like they, in their own periods, were a little bit inactive, right? I know Demi does ladder quite a bit nowadays, but a lot more in Korea, Azure maybe a little bit more in North America. I don't know how often they do play against each other nowadays. So yeah, maybe he just wants to test the waters and see what this shark can do.
Maybe he's going to bring back some 2019 styles.
Oh my god. Yeah, I'd love to see that. We'll see. As so far from here, actually, as the Overlord is coming in, we don't see a Starport. We see 2 more Raxes.
Oh, I like the idea of that, mostly because I like the idea of Azure not going mech in the first game. But yeah, 3 racks being thrown down right now. I'm Not something you see too often in TVZ, but I think it's starting to get a little bit more popular nowadays.
Oh yeah, especially his 3 racks openers as well. But you know, Azure kind of throwing his own twist, or making his own twist here to that build. Behind this, he's also throwing down 2 NG bays, so he's being relatively economic, or very relatively greedy here when it comes to tech and with economy. What he lacks is, of course, he wasn't able to have too much of a presence of Hellions earlier. They were stuck at home. As
Game paused.
we're getting a bit of a pause.
Yes. Oh. A little bit of lag going on here in the server.
Yeah, welcome everyone to Southeast Asia and Australia, where the internet isn't the most ideal, and sometimes we have some latency issues.
Yeah, it's not the most ideal, and it's even worse if you happen to reside in India. Because that's the one region where there's less than ideal ping to everywhere. Yes. Sure, the throwback to Australia Open, the OSC Australia Open.
Yeah, Azure just said, I feel like I went into a time machine. It's 2016 again. He just got a flashback. He's like, what year is it? But this is what I mean. You know, it's been a long time since they've really competed against each other. So it's really cool to see them at it again. It's like, you know, it's like if Pele and Ronaldo, I don't know what he's Pele and
Maradona.
They came out of retirement, you know?
Yeah, it's like if Pele and Tom Brady came out of retirement. Like if Pele and Wayne Gretzky.
Terry Pratchett.
Terry Pratchett. The author.
They came out of retirement and played football together, you know? Yeah.
It's like if Pele and Jackie Chan
played
basketball.
Yeah. For one last time.
Yeah, like they used to.
You know? Meanwhile, here we go. Azure going to be pushing out a little bit here, clearing up as much creep as possible. I like little moves here, taking down 1 creep tumor by targeting the rocks. Only 1 though, he didn't get the second, but we'll still get a lot of tumors here in the center of the map.
Yeah, a lot of tumors, but what else is he going to get here? Because this is a very dedicated push. A couple of medevacs are coming in to join this army, and what scares me light is the lack of tanks or widow mines or really any sort of anchor point here for Azure. He's going to be relying a lot on his ability to micro.
Yeah, he's playing with fire right now. It's just a little bit of a bailing run, but here at his 3rd base, 11 SCVs go down. That's going to put even more pressure on him to deal damage, but bailing speed is done.
Bailing speed is done, and Azure is fighting on creep. Stim will allow him to get off creep just in time to avoid an engagement, but Demi's just sort of biding his own time.
Yeah, exactly. May have lost a lot of creep here, but there's just so much more Ling Bane where that came from. 1-1's about to key in as well. Azure does hold an upgrade lead, and he's very quick to start 2-2, so he will be able to maintain that lead. But again, he has to be so careful here. His army is so fragile. He's working with a glass cannon right now. As you were saying, there is no anchor point to his army.
Yeah, now finally a couple of widow mines will be meeting the rest of this army, but they're not here quite yet. Demi actually tried to go for a run-by, it seems.
Yeah, exactly. He's leaving the minimal amount of units to defend. He has a lot of banelings, don't get me wrong, but the rest of his links are going across the map. Widow mines are going to come into the fray, and depending on how good their shots are, he could still take this fight.
Widow mines will connect with 1 clump of banelings, and the rest of them will be taken out by the Marines. Brilliant target firing from Azure here on top of these banelings with his Marines! Hellbats are a little bit expendable now. He's trying to bait the banelings into attacking those, but Demi does not take it. Banelings crash into every other unit, both on the front lines and back in Azure's bases. This is looking like a very quick Demi 1-0.
Yeah, exactly. He crushes the frontal army. He goes for a massive counterattack and just takes down everything here at the 3rd base. Azure just barely doesn't have anything left here. Unfortunately, he just wasn't really anticipating any kind of major run by. He didn't have any reinforcements in position back at home, and now he's knocked down to 2 mining bases.
Pretty much. Meanwhile, Demi, he's sitting very pretty on 5 bases and 80 workers Demi doesn't need to build a single drone for the rest of this game, assuming he doesn't lose them. He's going straight into late game.
Yeah, he's going straight for that infestation pit. He's going to go straight for the hive, going into lunkers if he needs them. But let's be honest, if he just stuck with Ling Bane, he would be able to just perpetually keep Azure on those 2 bases. For now, because he's taking up, Azure is given the opportunity to re-establish this third, but he's down in workers. He needs to try and find some damage, and he's putting all his hopes and his dreams into a drop.
Yeah, and that drop can do quite a bit. Like you said, Demi is... There's a little bit of a window of opportunity right now when Demi is taking up. He's not really producing as many units as he otherwise would, but it's 1 medevac. It's 8 Marines. And even if Demi loses a couple of drones, he's still over 80 workers. I'm just in awe of the worker count right now of Demi.
Exactly, like the creep is good enough connecting all the bases, barely at the halfway point, but he has all of his bases right. He has a 5th base up and running, fully saturated. 86 drones means that he doesn't have to worry about droning anytime soon. Ling Bane is all he needs. Queens for some anti-air. He was delaying his Hydrotech for quite some time. Now he's finally getting into it. Now he finally will have a more reliable form of anti-air just in time for these drops.
Yeah, and I'm liking the multi-prong coming out from Azure, but again, I feel like the sheer quantity of his units just isn't enough. Surprisingly able to save all of these. Banelings just weren't quick enough to connect.
Yeah, just barely weren't quick enough. We saw a cancel, not a kill on that 6th base as well, so Demi's able to keep it up and running. Meanwhile, a bit of a drop here towards right. He gets a queen, gonna be able to get gets a Hydra and gets a queen as well, so not bad.
Those poor Hydras, man. They just wanted to see what was going on.
Oh god, they just wanna be in this world, and unfortunately they weren't able to. Azure does have his 3rd base up and running. He's trying to turtle up, and that makes a lot of sense. But Demi, because of his economy, because of his army, like he can run his face into this wall if he wants to, trade it efficiently, and he'll still be okay.
Pretty much. I mean, we'll look at his income right now, look at the amount of larvae available to him. It's actually maxed out, and yeah, he's not going to be able to make lurkers, but he doesn't need to.
Yeah, he doesn't need to. Not yet. Meanwhile, we have a drop here on the right-hand side. Going to be able to get another queen. At the same time, another drop into the natural. We have a Widmine drop into the 3rd base. Azure with the tri-pronged attack is going to be dealing some damage.
Oh!
Ooh.
The medevac! They get taken out, but he is able to take out quite a number of workers as well. He's actually on an even worker count, but again, his base count leaves much to be desired.
Yeah, he does slight the infestation bit though, so again, like these drops have been able to do a surprising amount of damage, pulling Demi apart. His army isn't the most flexible, especially when it comes to dealing with drops. He's forced back, but now he again is given the opportunity to get more upgrades. 3 3s on the way. He doesn't pull the trigger yet, and Azure is working on a 4th. If he somehow gets his 4th up and running, like Azure, he can still make a comeback happen.
Yeah, the main concern right now, at least for me, is defending 2 of these bases at once. It's definitely possible, especially if we start getting some better if we start getting some SimCity thrown into the mix with planetaries and whatnot. But Demi's looking at this somewhat exposed 4th base, and he is already about to pounce.
Yeah, exactly. Has Ling Bane Hydra ready to dive into this location. Meanwhile, Azure is going to be distracting him a little bit, but here we go. Demi, he dives in.
Nice split on the Lings, doesn't lose too many to the Widow Mines. The Banelings are able to crash into just about everything. SCVs, Marines, tanks, and even the Planetary Fortress as well. Ah, man, feels bad, man. Poor Azure, he just got that 4th up and running. He just paid off the mortgage, and now it collapses.
Yeah.
To a tsunami of Banelings.
Feels bad, man. He worked so hard to get it up and running. 24 SCVs go down, as well as the 4th base, as well as the majority of his army. Demi, with his massive bank, just remaxes, and he can go for a 2nd wave. Azure is still licking his wounds. He's still struggling to recover after that fight. He's throwing down his 4th base on location. He did not have a CC ready to replace the one that he just lost.
Yeah, that was definitely going to be the plan for him. Again, when we reach this sort of stage in TVC, you want to be throwing down those CCs next to each other to help a little bit in the SimCity, but Azure just didn't have the time to get to that point. I was staring at that one Widow Mine for a while.
Yeah.
I was thinking, is it going to get friendly fire? Not in the end. But again, doesn't matter in the end.
Doesn't matter. Here we go. Lurkers are finally here. They have their upgrades. Adaptive Talons and Groove Spines kick in just in time for this engagement. And alas, with the Flood of Wings, there's just not enough on the ground here for Azure. GG gets called, and Demi takes the first game.
Yeah. Felt like he won it at about the 7-minute mark, but yeah, the game went on for a little while longer just because Azure was able to bounce straight back.
Yeah, I mean, again, I was really impressed with his multi-pronged attacks, like with his ability to just keep Demi busy. But it also took him a while to really get that going, and Demi was so far ahead that like that damage just didn't matter anyway. Killing queens, 11 drones, and an infestation pit just wasn't enough.
Yeah, not in the end. I got a very interesting opener though by Azure. 3 racks with, I was gonna say Hellbats, but he actually pushed out initially without an armory.
Yeah. The armory came in a little bit later, and I mean, it wasn't a bad push, don't get me wrong, but like because of his prioritization of his upgrades and everything, it meant that like tanks and widow mines were a little bit delayed. His third base was very exposed as well because of how committed he was with his initial army, and yeah, it is a bit of a shame that he missed the move out, that he missed, you know, that massive run by being set up.
Yeah. Maybe if he didn't, then, you know, we could have had a very different game, one where Azure was able to continually apply pressure on Demi, but instead, because of that run by, Demi put Azure out of in a little bit of a coma for a couple minutes, and in that time he just teched up, he got drones, he expanded, he did literally everything. What's that old mantra that they say, like, when your opponent does anything? Attack, defend, and expand at the same time? That's exactly what Demi did.
Nice.
Anyway, we are going to be continuing our series now on Data Under the Sea. In the bottom left-hand corner of the map, spawning all the way in the bottom left-hand corner, we of course have our red Zerg player coming out from the Jewel of India. He is of course going to be representing Alpha X. He is Demi.
And spawning in the top right-hand corner of Data Under the Sea, we have the Australian Terran player himself. He is blue, and he is also Azure.
Now the question, as always, Light, does the rule of Azure apply? Because he played Bio in Game 1, is he going to play Mech in Game 2?
I think he will. I don't want him to, Yaku, but
Yeah.
I feel like
I'm reaching back into my brain archives of 2019, and I do seem to recall a number of very, very drawn out Mech versus Zerg games between both Azure and Demi.
I was trying to forget, Yaku.
I successfully forgot until a couple of moments ago.
There we go, mate. There we go. I mean, oh my god, Azure already doing something crazy, by the way, as he opens up Reactor first before Reaper or Marine.
And definitely leaving himself very exposed here. At the very least, Demi should be able to get a delay on this CC, but since Demi himself opened up a little bit economic, it's not the case right now.
Yeah, so I do like this from Azure just because he's playing the player right now. Demi is pretty standard. You know, Demi, sure, he has some iconic play styles, like, of course, his Muta play, for example, but for the most part, like, he isn't necessarily a crazy player. He doesn't go for early Roach, like, all-ins or anything like that in this matchup. He's not like Miyamika. He's not like Go-Go Joey in that respect. So I think being greedy and cutting some corners here, it makes sense against Demi.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Demi, he's a very stylistic player, but only in the mid-game. The openings are very standard coming out from him.
Yeah, exactly.
Typically, anyway.
Yeah, Hatch Gas Pool opener so far. Like, nothing too wild here, nothing too early, nothing too aggressive. Azure is going to be playing blind, and he's just scouting around with his Marines. He's trying to hunt down any kind of stray Overlords. Thankfully for Demi, he does have his own Overlord here already on the high ground, so just safe and sound. And Azure, again, if there was any early Roach Warren, it wouldn't have been scouted, but It's Demi, so there isn't.
Yeah. But you know what? If there was, it wouldn't have been scouted.
True. Oh god.
But if it was, it would have been Demi.
Meanwhile, from this reactor first, we are going into a 1-1-1, a much more standard 1-1-1 opener. Going to be a little bit more aggressive here. We already have a decent amount of Marines because of the early reactor. So I wonder if this is all going to come into play. And if it's all going to come together. Are we going to see, yeah, medevac first?
Ooh. I was waiting for that, yeah. So right off the bat, Azure, he is going to be aggressive. He is... It still remains to be seen whether or not he'll throw down an armory just to be a little bit more committed with his initial push, but there's a lot you can really do with the medevac.
Oh yeah, exactly. He's going to be zooming across the map here with his Hellions and with his Marines. It's going to be a very, very early timing. Of course, this is going to hit before stim or combat shields or anything crazy like that, but ideally this is going to be unexpected. Demi, his scouting overlord, is here on the left-hand side. He doesn't see the medevac, and he has no idea as to what the opener is. He does see some Hellions at the natural, so he knows about the 1-1-1, but again, he's still not wise to the drop. Until now.
Yeah, meanwhile, Azure, he is splitting up his forces a little bit, so even though Demi will scout the medevac with his Ling, he does still need to decide, okay, how do I split up my forces? This is the early game. He only has Lings and Queens to work with, and not that many of them.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder if Demi did end up seeing that drop, by the way. I'm not 100% certain. He is making some safety Lings, which makes sense. He's also droning up. He's got plenty of Queens here on the front line. 8 Queens in total. Here we go. Drop does connect here. Does land at the natural base, but the Lings were already in position.
Very nice precaution being taken here by Demi. And this is just about how to split up your forces. Demi is pretty much demonstrating how to split up your forces in this scenario. Queens for the Hellions, Lings for the Marines.
And these Marines just haven't done much here. 1 Marine goes down as a result. I say 1 quick, yeah, 2 Marines in total. The creep is immediately going to be respread here by some of these Queens. The rest of the Queens are still waiting for those Hellions to try and dive into a mineral line, and this opener just hasn't really done much for Azure.
Yeah, not that much damage, but arguably it is keeping Demi back for the time being. In the meantime, Azure, he is starting to tech up. He's getting his 2nd and 3rd racks, and actually no, he's getting his 4th and 5th racks.
Yeah.
There we go. This is why, even despite not getting damage, despite not dealing damage, this is still advantageous for Azure. Map control.
It's all about that map control. Can he hold on to it right now? Again, trying to clean up as many tumors as he can with that splash damage from those Hellions. It gets 1 active tumor in the end, not bad. And Demi is doing what Demi does best. This is the one, the Demi we know and love, Spire, coming out.
Yeah, boy. We're talking about those stylistic Demi plays in the mid game. This is exactly what we were referring to. Will we get that Ragnarok of mutas? Is my question.
Ling Bang Muta coming out from...
but
Not quite the player, unfortunately. But yes, Demi is known for his mutas, has been known for his mutas for many, many years. And he's still rocking it here, even in the meta of lurkers, of hydras. Again, unfortunately, Azure wasn't really able to accomplish too much with his opener, and because of that, the Hellions are forced back. Enough time has passed where Demi has enough control where his creep is now spreading freely. That's a scary thing here for Azure.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's even scarier when the tank takes a little bit of damage from the Marines.
Yeah. Thankfully he didn't kill it and he can always repair it, so yeah. It's okay, it's okay, don't worry about it.
He was just testing the durability.
Exactly, as we do see Azure once again just testing the waters here, picking up whatever he can. 2 creep tumors and an overlord. Not bad here whatsoever. Sure, there are plenty of Lings and a handful of Queens here, but it shouldn't be enough to really take down this drop.
Yeah, top priority as usual for Azure here is to keep his units alive. Top priority for Demi is to do whatever he can to get these dang kids off his lawn. And by kids, I mean men with gun.
Oh yeah. And they are forced off his lawn. Now, this is where the map is going to come into play, I feel. A sensor tower is thrown down, and I feel like that's a little bit telling here. On Data C, as a Terran player, it is relatively easy to get 4 bases up and running and secure your 4 bases. It's always a bit of a challenge taking your 5th, whether it's on the right-hand side or on the left. It will be difficult, especially with all this creep. But if Azure can, like, stabilize, can slow the game down a little bit further, can turtle on up, and defend against these mutas, I mean, like, he can still bounce back.
Yeah, that's definitely, I think, what we've seen most on Data C, particularly in TVZ. Terran players just turtling up a lot more on this map than the others.
Yeah, it is kind of what this map has become known for a little bit more, but we'll see if that's still going to be the case, as Azure is still being very active here with his drops, trying to stay on top of the creep as best he can. Can't make it as easy for Demi to expand and just take control of the map, and just like that, again, another couple of creep tumors, and he shouldn't be able to lose too much here, at least until the mutas come out.
Yeah, that's when he really has to reconsider how he approaches the drops on this map. The mutas come in, and of course Azure can't pick up his units, otherwise he's just gonna suicide them in the medevacs.
Yeah, exactly. The medevacs try to boost away, but the boost doesn't last long enough. The mutas will shut down 1 and 2 medevacs here, and just like that, Azure's gonna be contained. Oh, Demi flying too close to the sun, tries to go for the sensor tower.
And now that Demi has secured the air control, I have a feeling we're going to see Azure double down a little bit more when it comes to turtling.
Yeah, I mean, we already see another couple of turrets thrown down here in the main base. I love the way that he's just splitting up his Marines here as well. Gonna be able to pick up 1 of almost 2 mutas.
Yeah, more importantly, it buys himself a lot of time to throw down a couple of these missile turrets. The mutas are coming in to the main. Meanwhile, outside the 4th, we see a very familiar storyline.
Yeah, the Ling Bane run-by is here. The army wasn't in position. The planetary goes down. Not too many workers this time, to be fair, but he did get the base.
And the question is, was that a little bit too inefficient for Demi? Because now, I mean, I'm looking at the unit counts. Azure has a little bit of window here where he can either counterattack or just tech up. Seems like he is doing the latter.
Yeah, the army of Azure is still very solid, all things considered. Again, unfortunately out of position at the time, but very solid nonetheless. So I still don't want to count him out too much. His worker count is still relatively healthy as well. He is lacking in CCs. He's trying to work on that himself, don't get me wrong. I would love to see a couple more CCs thrown down. So he's doing a really good job at turtling, but at the same time, what is Demi going to do with the time that he is given? Ling Bane Muta is great. He finally finished up his infestation pit, but where do we take up from here? Are we going to stay on Ling Bane Muta, or are we going to try and get into Broodlord Infestor?
Yeah, definitely. The build definitely lends itself very, very well to a Great Aspire at this point, but I wouldn't be too surprised if Demi decides to switch gears and throw down the Hydra Den just to get the lurkers.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely have their place. It can be difficult breaking into these entrenched positions with lurkers, but these mutas are just doing such a great job at pulling them apart anyway. Second armory is going to get thrown down. We'll take it out.
Yeah, taken out as well. I know what you meant.
Yeah. Cut out.
A lot of Banelings actually being taken out unnecessarily. Demi really trying to get that juicy connection on the SCVs. He kills a bunch of them with his mutas, but in the end, he sacrifices basically all of his Banelings for nothing.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised
42.
there. I thought those Baneling connections were going to be a little bit better, but only 12 SCVs went down.
Yeah, or I thought at the very least he'd, take out the CC, but in the end, was not the case. Demi forced to rebuild his forces. Azure, he's been trading very efficiently, which, of course, is the name of the game for a Terran player at this point.
Oh yeah, meanwhile he takes down the creeping queens. He's going to be able to clean up all the creep here outside his third base. Sensor towers are finally getting up and running, so Azure can be a little bit more prepared against all of these run-bys. I would love a little bit more SimCity as well. Like, this fourth base is still looking very vulnerable to Ling Bane run-bys. As if on cue, there we go. CC is thrown down to be morphed into a planetary, I imagine. Ghost Academy is on the way, so you can prepare for Ultras or Broodlords or any kind of tech switch.
which for the time being, Demi is not going for it. He got Hive specifically for 3-3, it seems.
Oh yeah, 3-3 is on the way. Meanwhile, at the same time, the Lingbane runs in once again towards the 4th planetary, and it goes down.
Ay. Still not a very efficient trade, but we're kind of getting to the point where Demi can afford to trade inefficiently. I mean, he's remaxing right now, and that's barely made a dent in his bank.
Exactly. Like Azure, we were talking about how what would happen if Azure got his 4 bases up and running. That's never really happened. Like, he's been desperately trying to get this saturation up and running here, but it's just not meant to be. Demi is always just diving on top of the 4th base time and time again with Lingbane, and Azure is just always a little bit underprepared, just because whenever Demi goes for it, he's also attacking with his mutas as well.
Yeah, Demi kind of giving Azure a little bit of a taste of his own medicine with the masked multi-pronged style. Azure, he's been able to get the 4th bases up, but he's never really been able to get them running, is the thing.
Yeah, and now Demi, the icing on the cake here. Greater Spires on the way. Ultra Cavern as well. He's taking literally every single base on the map, except for the bases here on the top left, to be fair. But regardless, like Demi, like his bank is insane. He is in control. He can lose his army and rebuild it. Won't even matter.
Yeah, I'm honestly a little bit surprised that Demi is grabbing these mining bases instead of just throwing out a bunch of macro hatcheries, because I think that's the one resource that he is a little bit lacking in, larva. Other than that, he's mining a lot of minerals. He's mining 3 times or twice the amount of minerals and gas as Azure.
Oh yeah, so many minerals, man. Meanwhile, Azure is maxed, don't get us wrong. He is on 200 supply, but he just doesn't have a bank, which means what you see is what you get. He's gonna have a hard time replenishing his army after a big fight.
Yep, all he has is all he's got.
What he's got?
Well, Demi, it's pretty good. But is it good enough to withstand these forces? The answer is yes. If the Banelings get distracted by a planetary fortress, this is the window of opportunity Azure needed.
Yeah, exactly. He could go for a big counterattack, but 56 Lings are on the way and 7 Brood Lords. Here is that transition that we were waiting for. Again, unfortunately, Azure is going to have a hard time pushing out, because even if he did, look at the creep. He has so much creep to work through. He can't just like dive in and just head towards one of these spaces. It would be suicide. He has to slowly push out, slowly clean up all this creep, and Demi just has so much time to respond and rebuild.
Yeah, that massive counterattack try to end the game, that's not gonna happen when Demi has, again, this much of a bank of minerals, gas, and larva as well. Azure makes it halfway across the map, he's immediately swarmed by Lings in every angle. What he's trying to do right now is just force Demi to trade inefficiently until he bankrupts himself.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see if he can do it. Meanwhile, here we go. The Ghosts are going to get a couple of snipes, so the Ghosts are exposed. Demi, he dives on in.
Just about every single unit. This time there is no planetary fortress to act as a little bit of a distraction. The Banelings get on top of the bio and just about everything else as well. And Demi, in a second, just remaxes entirely. GG. Demi takes that series 2-0. And I guess the streak continues. Even after all these years.
Oh, it does. Demi still reigns supreme. GG, well played to Demi for that dominant showing of ZvT. My condolences to Azure, but again, I hope he's still satisfied with his performance, because, hey, taking down Aztecs was no easy feat. May have had some fun doing it, but again, like, it was impressive nonetheless for Azure to make it as far as he did. Did struggle a little bit here against Demi, but his TVP was still looking good.
Who doesn't struggle against Demi?
True.
Is the question. I mean, we didn't mention it, but he is the top seed this week, along with Beastork.
He is the top seed. You know, even Nightmare struggled against Demi, you know? Like, he's on fire.
Without a doubt. He's underwater, and he's on fire. That's how hot he is.